right, we get things rolling. 10:52 on the West Coast, and that means it's 1:52 on the East Coast. Welcome to the Krueger Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find in the Bay Area. Also brought to you by Marin Auto Glass, New York style Italian sausage, and Underdog Fantasy. We've got Jack Hammer in the house Friday and our normal slot ready for our dual stream extravaganza. Jack, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Larry?
Doing fantastic. Getting ready for Niners Browns in week 6. Niners are undefeated. They're going up against the number one defense in football statistically, and just a lot to get into. Right out of the chute, one of the stories of the day is that Denver has kissed off Frank Clark. He is now officially a free agent. They tried to trade him. There wasn't a trade market out there for him. John Lynch actually went on the radio this morning and was asked about Frank Clark, and he said he went on with Brian Murphy today on KMBR. He says, you only have so many spots. I think we're pretty good. We like our group. Frank Clark has been a really good player, but that's all I'll say to that. We're happy with where our group's at. I never got the feeling that Frank Clark was their kind of guy. Frank Clark's kind of a rough guy. He's had some problems off the field. He had kind of a checkered resume coming into the NFL. He's not for everybody. And I just always have felt like the 49ers felt like he wasn't a good fit for their culture. He's a hell of a football player. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. God knows he's rushed the passer well in his career in multiple spots. But as much as I would love to see them load up and add more pass rush, and a guy like Clark would help, I kind of think that I kind of expected them to pass, and Lynch indicated this morning they're going to pass.
Yeah, I would see them passing on Frank Clark. He's been a good player in his career. I think he's a little bit on the backside of that now, which is why you're seeing the Broncos move on. One of the reasons why you're seeing the Broncos move on from him. And like you said, he's got a little bit of a pass, but Randy Gregory had a little bit of a pass, but I think his pass is different, right? And I think that they feel a lot better about Randy Gregory as a person, what they can bring in. There are some guys out there that they could still maybe take a look at in terms of making a move to add a defensive end. I just don't see it being Frank Clark.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it's going to be Frank Clark. As we get things rolling, everybody hit like and subscribe. And, of course, this is a dual-channel deal, so if you're subscribed over here, make sure you subscribe to Jack's channel. If you haven't subscribed over here, make sure that you subscribe here and with Jack's channel. And hit that like button to try to boost the stream as much as we possibly can here on a Friday morning. I got a lot going on today. I got 3 different streams going on later today. So we got a lot to hit on, but let's talk about the Niners and the Browns. The 49ers are undefeated. A lot of people think that one of these games, like this could be a trap game. Like they had a big emotional national TV win over the Cowboys, and they may be flat for this game. Stefanski, the head coach of the Browns, though, his record as a favorite is 20-10. His record as an underdog is 8-17. This is a big spread. How do you see this game, Niners-Browns in Cleveland?
Yeah, this is a game that really favors the 49ers, across the board, with the exception of their offense against the Browns defense. But there's so much about this Browns offense that really favors the 49ers and their defense. A lot of times when I look at these games and I'm trying to make a prediction on what I think is going to happen, one of the main things I look at is the quarterback matchup. And that heavily favors the 49ers in this one. No Deshaun Watson, PJ Walker, is that his name? Yep. quarterback for the Browns, who it looks like they're going to be starting him over the rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson. This is a guy who 7 starts in his career, and he's thrown a lot more interceptions than he has touchdowns. That plays into the 49ers' favor. No Nick Chubb. The Browns want to run the ball, but they don't really have a running back that can do that. So everything about this game from the 49ers defense against the Browns offense heavily favors the 49ers.
Yeah, no question about it. Cleveland's run game is not the same now that they've lost Nick Chubb, and they've only had 2 games since Chubb went out, and both of those games they ran for under 100 yards. And if you look at what they did before that, they were running for well over 100, in some cases almost 200 yards. So they're going to be leaning on guys that aren't anywhere close to Nick Chubb. I mean, Jerome Ford is a nice player at Cincinnati. Kareem Hunt is in the twilight of his career. Pierre Strong has got some speed, kind of runs upright. But I think the Niners really, they're fortunate here. They're missing Deshaun Watson. He's out. Joel Bitonio is the Browns' best offensive lineman, the left guard. He's out with an injury. That means that, Javon Hargrave is going to have a really favorable matchup, you would think, inside. And then I just really like the Niners' defensive line to dominate here. Dawan Jones, the rookie out of Ohio State's huge, but now you get Bosa and Gregory and Jackson and Farrell. Jedrick Wills has struggled, former first-round pick out of Alabama. I think the Niner defensive line dominates in this game. How do you see that matchup, Niner D-line against the Browns O-line?
Yeah, that's a matchup that heavily favors the 49ers, especially with the injuries that the Browns have up front right now. Batonio being out, like you mentioned, there's a possibility. I think the center. I don't know if you've heard whether Pochich is going to play or not, but if he's not able to go, that's one that really favors the 49ers. So, you mentioned it, Nick Bosa up against DeJuan Jones. That favors everything about that matchup on the offense for the Browns against the 49ers really favors the Niners. And I do think that they can take advantage of not having Batonio in there. That favors, Eric Armstead's been really good this year. Javon Hargrave has been excellent. You put those two in the middle against a backup guard, I think you get a lot of wins there. And then, anytime you get a rookie up against Nick Bosa, that's usually a win for San Francisco as well. So it really seems like this is one that sets up well for their defense to get all over PG Walker and make some trouble in the backfield.
Bay Marin says, I'm here to listen to how Larry says Sione Taki. It's a great name, Sione Taki. He's their third backer. It's they go with like kind of a 4-2-5 as their base with Greg Newsome as a nickel. The reason the Browns are so good is you have Myles Garrett at right defensive end. He's as good as any defensive end, including Nick Bosa. You got Zadarius Smith, the former Viking and Packer, who's at the left defensive end spot. They got a true two-gapper inside in Dalvin Tomlinson. Shelby Harris, the former Seahawk, is a tremendous interior rusher. So that's their front four. On the second level, you got Anthony Walker and JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. And those guys can really run, though I think you can pick on them in pass coverage. And then, on the back end, I mean, Denzel Ward is a phenomenal corner. Martin Emerson is, a really good player as well. Third-round pick out of Mississippi State, I believe. Greg Newsome is their nickelback. He's one of the better nickelbacks in the league. And then they have Grant Delpit and Juan Thornhill, the former Chief, at the safety spot. So they kind of go with a 4-2-5 as their base. Sometimes they'll take one of those defensive backs off the field and go to Sione Taki. But, the one thing that's interesting, I'm looking at some of the numbers. Cleveland's opponents have only 6 red zone attempts, fewest in the NFL. And their opponents convert only 22.6% of their third downs I'm not sure if that's third downs, but that's the lowest percentage in the league. And Kyle is 1-8 against Jim Schwartz. How much do you think that Schwartz has the secret to beat Kyle? I mean, when you see Kyle, who's had nothing but success in the NFL, looking at a 1-8 record against Jim Schwartz-led defenses, what do you think Schwartz does that slows him down? Is it just simply that, they have the wide nine and the wide nine is bothers Kyle's offense? What's your theory?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big ones is that wide nine. I think that's partly why Kyle Shanahan wanted to bring the wide nine to San Francisco, right? He didn't do it until 2019. He brought that over, I think, in some part because he realized what he was going to be going up against. He was dealing with it within his own division against the Los Angeles Rams, and the Rams were the number one team that they needed to beat. So that's one of them. He also has a number of people across the league that are starting to adapt his style, his system. So there's a lot of outside zone. That's one piece of it. And then, beyond that, just, Jim Schwartz is a really good defensive coordinator. He's been really good everywhere he's gone. And to me, this is the one matchup for the 49ers that I think, obviously the 49ers offense against the Browns defense, that's a positive for them. But you look at this 49ers offense against the Browns defense, and now you're looking at a real matchup. I think this could be a problem for San Francisco. You look at the numbers, right? You mentioned it. I talked about it. I put that tweet out earlier this week, the 1-8, the fact that in their 9 games against each other, Kyle Shanahan's offense has only averaged 15.8 points per game. You look at the Browns this year, they're allowing only 196, right around there, 196 yards per game. They just held the Tennessee Titans to under 100 yards in a game 3 weeks ago. And they're a tough defense. And then the only team that's really beat them and really put numbers up against them was the Baltimore Ravens. And a lot of that was because they have a running quarterback who was able to make some things happen with his legs and different things like that. So it was just a little bit of a different style. I think the 49ers could really struggle here against this defense early on. I think that if the 49ers defense goes out and dominates the way we think they will, I think in the second half you'll see the 49ers maybe able to take advantage, but it's gonna be a grind. That's 100%. But the thing with Cleveland, you got the wide 9, but Kyle Shanahan talked about, they attack, right? They're an attacking defense. They play very similar to what the 49ers do. They're very similar defenses in the way that they attack you. And so I could see this being an issue for them.
I already know how I'm going to wager on this game. I'm going with the 49ers on the teaser to the under. That's how I see this game. The spread in this game is Niners minus 9.5, 10 in some spots. Does that sound right? Is that about what you're thinking? And, I just think that seems like that seems a little high. That seems a little high just because, I do think it could potentially be a blowout, but if I was betting it and hedging a little bit, I would probably go with the 49ers and tease that down to 49ers minus 2 or something like that. And then the total is, let me look at the total here. The total's 36, which is a really low total. I would tease that down. I would tease that down to 29 or whatever and go tease that up, I should say, to 42 and go under. I just really think that it's potentially a low-scoring game, and I like the 49ers. Cleveland's got the number 1 total defense. They got the number 1 pass defense, and yet the Browns, I don't see with P.J. Walker lighting up this 49er defense. Niners are the best turnover team in the league. The Browns are 29th in turnover differential at -7. So I could see, and then with wet conditions possibly, I could see it being a little bit lower scoring, but the 49ers winning. This one's interesting here from Peter Lee. He says, Larry, did you see Shannon Sharp's insulting comments about Brock Purdy on First Take today? Shannon claims Purdy is not an elite MVP type quarterback, but rather Purdy is a product of the system. Well, you know what? We're gonna watch that right now. I'm gonna share the screen. I'm gonna let people see this. This is on Twitter from earlier today. Here we go. Little Shannon Sharp with Ryan Clark right there, and here is Sharp.
But is he really an elite quarterback, or is it just the situation he's in?
No, he's not an elite quarterback. He's a product of the system. It's more credit to Kyle Shanahan and what he's done. He's not, and RC, you'll appreciate this. In the biblical term, the devil told God that Job, the reason why he serves you is because you give everything to him. He said if you remove that hedge from around him, he will curse his very maker.
He'll curse you.
He said you can take everything but his life. Took his kid, took his sheep, took all that. Job was still faithful.
Never cursed him.
I'm not so sure that if we remove Debo, we remove Kyle Shanahan, we removed Ayuk, we would still see this Brock Purdy. He's a product of the system. Now, that's not to take away from what he's doing. It's okay for him to be in the MVP discussion and not be Patrick Mahomes or not be Tua or not be an elite quarterback. He still has to go out there and operate. He just doesn't have to do as much as, say, those other guys. If I were to put him in Patrick Mahomes, if I switch places and says, okay, you got to go do what Patrick Mahomes does, or you got to go do what one of these other quarterbacks, I'm not so sure Brock Purdy could do that. But in this system, the ability to run the football with Christian McCaffrey and all the weapons, because all he has to do is just not turn it over. Get it in the Ayuk's hand, get it in Debo's hands, get it in Kittle's hands, and let them do the work. But no, he's not elite. No stretch of the imagination is he elite.
All right, there you go. I can't disagree more with Shannon Sharp, because all I would say, Jack, is name me the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, and let's talk about it. Patrick Mahomes, he has Travis Kelce, he had Tyreek Hill, he's got great weapons. Isaiah Pacheco. Josh Allen has Stephon Diggs. I mean, we're talking about Gabe Davis. I mean, we're talking about absolutely good players. You're telling me that Tua Tagovailoa would be the same if he didn't have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, all the bevy of weapons they have there, Raheem Mostert. I just think that all the top quarterbacks have weapons, and yes, Purdy has Kyle, and some of what Kyle does, absolutely helps him. But, Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid. Tua's got Mike McDaniel. I mean, these guys are great offensive coordinators in their own right. So once again, it's just another way to disrespect the guy who went last in the draft. And you're just going to sit there and be like, he's a system quarterback. And then it comes down to like qualifiers and this and that. And I just think it's bullshit. At the end of the day, I think it's lazy reporting. The reality is Brock Purdy's 12-1 straight up as a starter, 12-0 in games that he started and finished. The Niners are averaging 35 points a game. And that's not all Kyle Shanahan. The other stat that I don't know that Shannon Sharp is privy to, when Brock Purdy trotted onto the field last December against the Miami Dolphins to take over for Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49er quarterbacks not named Jimmy Garoppolo under Kyle Shanahan were 9-29. So it's not like you can throw anybody in the system and it works. And it really is, it's disrespect. It doesn't really quantify what Purdy's doing out there. To me, JT O'Sullivan's breakdown, is probably the best I've seen of Purdy. And it's just like this consistent disrespect. And, I would just say keep bringing it on. But JT O'Sullivan, who watched the film, rolled it back and forth, said he calls Brock a world-class anticipator as far as throwing with anticipation. He says he's decisive, he's poised, he has an unbelievable feel for a young player. Obviously there's weapons, obviously it's a good system, but I think to say that Brock is not, to try to diminish what Brock's doing, once again, it's tired, it's lazy, and it's going to come back to haunt guys like Sharp. Give me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of having this discussion. All the national pundits keep saying the same thing, and I'm fine having the conversation. I just think that they're missing the boat big time on it. Patrick Mahomes. If you take Travis Kelce away from Patrick Mahomes, what happens? Oh, that's right, you lose to the Detroit Lions on week 1, right? Yeah, you don't win that game. So that's Kyle. You asked the question. Kyle Shanahan said it best, right? About this whole system thing, Kyle Shanahan himself was asked if he would say that Brock Purdy is a product of the system, and what he said is it's ridiculous. You just got to watch the tape. Plays at a high level every time he's out there, and he's done it in a lot of different situations versus a lot of different defenses on the road, at home, playoff games when injured. You can't do all that stuff. He's been out there too long. It's on the tape, and it's ridiculous. And you're seeing it's guy after guy after guy that's on these shows that are saying it. And, Dan Orlovsky stepped in it on Monday morning when he said that Mac Jones, if he was in San Francisco, would be performing at the same level as Brock Purdy. And as soon as he got a whiff of what George Kittle was cooking, he started to walk those back. I don't know if you heard what he said yesterday on the radio in San Francisco, trying to act like he wasn't, taking a shot at Purdy and it wasn't anything negative towards him. Come on, man. You've got to understand what the narrative is out there regarding Brock Purdy, right? Like, you can't say that every quarterback that's out there, oh yeah, you put him in the front of your system, he'd be performing like Brock Purdy. Put that guy out there, yeah, Brock Purdy. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. And I'll sit and instead of listening to these guys, I'm going to listen to people who I think really know what the quarterback position is about. And and when I say the people that I feel like really know what it's about, I'm talking about guys like Steve Young, guys like Kurt Warner, guys that have won Super Bowls at that position, who knows what it takes to get it done. Kurt Warner, you want to talk about a system quarterback. Kurt Warner was absolutely a system quarterback. If this is what you want to, if Brock Purdy's a system quarterback, Kurt Warner was absolutely a system quarterback. And he rode that all the way to the Hall of Fame. Look at the guys that Kurt Warner had in 1999 when he took over the greatest show on turf. He had Marshall Faulk in the backfield, one of the best running backs, dual threats of all time. Look at the receivers he had out there.
Oz Hakeem, he had, and also he had Mike Martz. I mean, it was an innovative system at that time.
Absolutely. And they were going up and down the field and nobody was like, oh, this guy, look at this guy. He's not elite. What are you talking about? Everything that Brock Purdy's doing is what made Kurt Warner elite. You want to know why Kurt Warner was so damn good in the NFL? Because he got the ball out of his hand on time. He had anticipation. He had exactly what you mentioned earlier, Larry, in terms of that, high level anticipator, being able to get the ball out of his hands quick. That is what he does. And that is why he is so much better for the 49ers than everyone else. Plus the fact that he can move around with his legs a little bit. This whole thing is, we've been dealing with this since the NFC Championship game loss. This is what the discussion's been around, all the negativity on this guy. I tell you right now, if you put Brock Purdy in Kansas City, the performance out there would be relatively the same as what they're getting out of Patrick Mahomes, just because, Patrick Mahomes can do some wild things, but he can't do wild things unless he has guys that are actually going to catch the ball on the other end. And I just feel like this whole discussion, and it's not just even the national guys. I'm sick and tired of some of the dorks on Twitter who do the same shit all the time.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, Brock Purdy plays with poise. He plays with confidence. He throws with accuracy. He throws with anticipation. He's first in the NFL in QBR. He's second in yards per attempt. He's second in completion percentage. 9 touchdowns, no picks. He just put up 42 last week against a defense that rolled in, allowing 10 points a game. And ultimately, Shanahan is the guy who I asked this question to Shanahan. Here he is once again.
You've had a lot of success with a lot of different quarterbacks in your system. What would you say to those who say that Brock is still largely a product of your system?
That's pretty ridiculous. You just got to watch the tape. He plays at a high level every time he's been out there. He's done it in a lot of different situations versus a lot of different defenses, on the road, at home, playoff games, when injured. He can't do all that stuff. He's been out there too long. It's on tape.
Yeah, so it's on tape. That's what he's saying. He's like, hey, look, it's on tape. It's there for everybody to see, and it just, to me, it's lazy. It just shows how lazy some guys can be in their reporting, and it's unfortunate, really. At the end of the day, it's kind of unfortunate that people are that lazy, and this is what Shannon Sharpe does for a living, is comment on football. You would think he would take more time and be a little bit more circumspect about what he was putting out there, and instead, he just doesn't. It's just like, it's just laziness, and I also asked Brock this week how he maintains his competitive edge, despite the fact that he's had a lot of success, and because I think that he probably plays a little bit with a chip on his shoulder, and but he's had a lot of success. So I asked him this question. Here's what he had to say when I asked him it.
Play with a chip on your shoulder, and amid all this success, how do you maintain an edge week after week?
Yeah, there's little things, just even more in meetings, Coach Greasy or Kubiak, Kyle, saying you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. So there's always something that's like, man, I could be better, you know. And so when I step out in the field, man, it's like still trying to prove to myself that, you know, I haven't reached my full potential yet. And so that's like that chip that I always, you know, have on my shoulder. And no matter what everyone else is saying, man, like I know that there's another level that I can get to. And so that's what I'm trying to get. And, you know, taking it one day at a time, but never, you know, being comfortable.
So there you go. I mean, we can say it, but it's better coming from him. I think he's going to get better. I really do. I was listening to an interview that Julian Edelman did with Colin Cowherd, and he's like, hey, look, I look at this kid and the way he's throwing it, and I think he still has more arm strength in there, and I think there's more coming for Brock Purdy as far as arm strength. And he goes, you know, he still had that elbow surgery. It wasn't that long ago. He goes, I see this kid getting better. And this is a guy who played with Tom Brady. You know what I mean? It's not like he's a receiver. So it's like he kind of knows what he's talking about. Not that Shannon Sharp doesn't, because Shannon Sharp is a great player in his own right. But I just think it's lazy. And it's like, hey, you know what? If there, Mark Willard said it best yesterday. I was driving back from the facility listening to 95.7 The Game. He's like, ripping Brock Purdy has become an industry now. It's become a way to nobody cared who Steven Ruiz was last week until he made Brock Purdy his 29th best quarterback or whatever, and everybody's like, Steven Ruiz. It's become like, hey, you know what? You want clicks, you want attention, just disrespect Brock Purdy, and boom, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. We've talked about this a few times on the channel together here, Larry, where we've talked about how negativity sells and all those types of things. And that's what we're getting here with Brock Purdy is you just gotta, you know, it's about getting the 49ers have a very large following. So when you say something against the grain like this, if you're willing to go ahead and put yourself out there and be wrong just to get clicks and get those views, it's an easy way of doing it. I would point that towards what you saw today from Shannon Sharp. I would say that with what you saw from Steven Ruiz, who continues to double down on it. Whatever, you know. I think when you look at what Orlovsky said, Orlovsky just got caught in the moment in a debate scenario where he threw that out. It wasn't like he was just, you know, asked a question. And
Rex Ryan just buried him too. It was beautiful.
Right. Yeah, it was, but that was a little bit more of a debate. It wasn't like they went to him and like he had this whole statement prepared. It was like a quick little thing. So it's a little bit different with I don't think Orlovsky was trying to make the statement that he was. He just needs to do a better job of choosing his words and the way that he really feels about it, unless that's how he truly feels. So it's the whole thing is wild. The amount of negativity around him, and you know, when you look at Brock Purdy, this is a guy who, you know, he takes all this stuff in, and I think it helps. It's one of those things that drives him. And, you know, people want to talk about people are so, here's one thing. You've got these people who I think too often when it comes to the other side of this, to the positive side of Brock Purdy, there's too many people that are tiptoeing around the positivity with him too. And they're not willing to stand out there and really say how good this guy is. Right. There's a lot of them aren't. I know, you know, you mentioned Mark and he said something before the season. He had a tweet that I quote tweeted out basically saying, you know, this guy's going to he should be a Pro Bowler. He's going to be in the MVP discussion. This is a team that can go to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. You don't have enough people really getting out there and just being and owning what they feel on this because they're afraid of the backlash, or at least early on they were. Steve Young knows a little bit about quarterback, right?
Yeah.
People don't want to compare Joe, you know.
We lose Jack. We lost Jack for the moment. I'm sure he will jump back in here, but he was making a point about Steve Young. You know, I you know, it's there we go. We lost you there for a second, Jack.
I was on a roll, and then
you were on a roll,
and then I think it must have been Shannon Sharp must have cut out my internet, but. But there's so many people, and Steve Young goes out, and Steve Young yesterday on the radio on KMBR on his regular hit that he does over there talks about how much of similarity that he sees between Brock Purdy and Joe Montana. He's willing to talk about it. You know, there was a tweet yesterday that I put out. You know, you go back and you look at Joe Montana in 1981. He goes up against the Dallas Cowboys in October of '81. he goes, leads them to a 45-14 victory over Dallas at Candlestick in that game. Guess what? That was his 14th start as a San Francisco 49er quarterback. And everybody, we know what he was, right? But if you can just take yourself back to 1981 when Joe Montana was on the come up, that is what we're seeing with Brock Purdy right now. You look at their, don't worry about their stats: 17 to 24, 242, and 4 touchdowns for Purdy in that game. 19 to 29, 279, 2 touchdowns for Montana. All that kind of stuff. These guys are so similar, Larry, in everything they do, in the way that they prepare, and the way that how precise they are. Brent Jones talked about it this week as well. I mean, here's the thing, and I don't know if people really understand this part about Brock Purdy, about why he's one of the reasons he's so good is this guy is the guy. He is fanatical about making sure that he is prepared and he is ready to go. That is the one thing about him where he meshes with Kyle Shanahan so well, is that Kyle Shanahan is the guy that wants to, his dad, Steve Young, talks about how his dad, let's do it again, let's do it again, let's do it again. Well, that's what Brock Purdy is. He's like, okay, I think we should probably try it one more time, right? Young mentioned yesterday, I don't know if you heard this, Larry, but he mentioned that on Sunday in the morning, he was on the practice field in Santa Clara at the facility, walking through the game plan. We see guys do a little bit, right? He's walking through, he's visualizing the routes and all those different kind of things that he's going to be seeing that night. Now, we see guys do that on the field a little bit before games. I think some of that is for the cameras, but that's what this guy is. And he goes out there and he plays the game like he knows what's going to happen before he sees it. And I think a lot of it is because he's prepared himself and he does know what he's going to see before he sees it. And
right now, I sense I have the same skill. I sense there's a train coming. I sense that I process what I'm looking at, and I'm like, you know what? Wait a second. I feel a train is going to come through Jack's yard, like literally any minute. And when you do prep and you watch film, and you just have a sense of the moment, like I do, like Brock does, when a train's coming by. I mean, you can feel it. Am I channeling my inner Brock?
there you go. That is you nailed it. The Purdy Express rolled through town, right on cue for you, Larry.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of my favorite ones of the week. I got to share. This is the last one I'll share here, but this is a good one. This is Alex Smith on KMBR talking about the Purdy disrespect. Here it is.
You could take the five starts last year and you take him the 5 starts this year, and he's playing on a completely different level. The command, again, the confidence, the throwing into one time, again, the guy throwing in tight circles, playing in a tight pocket, incredibly accurate, playing with anticipation, plays outside the pocket with his legs. Like, listen, there's no doubt about it. He's the real deal, and again, he's a big part of what the Niners are doing right now. Yes, it's a great system. Yes, there's great weapons around him. There's not a good offense in football that you don't point to all those exact same things. So for some reason, we want to hold it against Brock, but you go look at the other top 5 offenses in the NFL, they all have the same things. Tua's playing in an unbelievable system. He's got great weapons around him, right? Like, you could say that about everybody. Same thing with Josh Allen. Same thing in Kansas City with Pat. Like, again, for some reason, this kid, just because he's the last pick in the draft, because he's not 6'4" and 240 pounds, we want to continue to kind of hold it against him. But it's complete garbage. He's the real deal, and really happy for him.
There you go. A little bit of Alex Smith, and I love Alex Smith, a former Niner. And Alex Smith, is a really, really cerebral observer of football, and I think he's a guy that I love listening to comment. This is an interesting one as well as we switch topics here. ESPN's Dan Graziano talked about the Niners getting better at the trade deadline. Today is the 13th of October. The trade deadline is on the 31st. So we're basically 2.5 weeks away from the NFL trade deadline. Here's what Graziano wrote. He says, don't rule out the possibility of the 49ers, as tremendous as they already look, adding a player if they think he can make a difference. The Niners have the biggest of goals for this season, and they were aggressive last year with running back Christian McCaffrey when he became available. Remember, the Rams added Von Miller at the deadline a couple of years ago. If an opportunity to add an impact guy like that comes along at the right cost, don't sleep on the idea of the rich getting richer in San Francisco. So that being said, Mason Wright throws a super chat. He says apparently the Eagles are interested in Jeremy Chin. I've read that Jeremy Chin is really on the outs in Carolina. This is a guy that really excelled in Steve Wilkes' defense there, but now as they switch to a different defense this year, he's not even getting on the field. He was only on the field for less than 30% of the snaps. They're saying that he might be able to be gotten for a 4th and a 6th round pick. Jeremy Chin is a nickel corner / safety / linebacker who, and I understand he might be a little too, some people feel like he's too small to play linebacker and he's too big to play safety and all this stuff, or too big to play corner. But I think he would be a perfect addition for the Niners. Why? Well, one, because the Eagles want him, and you could block him from the Eagles, who lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, lost Avonte Maddox, have a need at the nickel corner. Two, if you get into the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they got Travis Kelce. I think in a lot of ways, Jeremy Chin is the perfect defender to put on Travis Kelce to take him away. And also, I think the price is right. The 49ers are inside their Super Bowl window. And when the trade deadline comes up on Halloween, you're still going to have all of November, all of December, and all of January, before you get to the Super Bowl. So that's 3 months of football. And a guy like Chin could cover you at linebacker if you had an injury, safety. He could let you play 3 safety looks. He could be another nickel back. To me, that is the guy to go get. If I'm John Lynch, I'm calling up Scott Fitterer, and I'm jumping the line on the Eagles, and I'm blocking him from going to Philadelphia, and I'm trading maybe a 3rd-round pick to jump in front. If they say he's the price tag's a 4 and a 6, I would offer a 3rd and say send Jeremy Chin here, don't send him to Philly, and try to block the Eagles from getting a key player. What do you think of Chin? What would you do at the deadline if you're the Niners?
Yeah, that's one of the names that I mentioned yesterday. I think Chin is a nice pick for the 49ers if they were able to go out and trade for him. Like you said, I think, what'd you say, a 4th and a 6th?
That's what they're saying the price tag's going to be. I would be willing to give. Heck, I was talking last night with Vish and Jesse, and I was saying I would offer a 2nd, but then I read how much he's fallen out of favor there. But he's not old. He's really cheap too. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. So, if you're one of these guys, hey, roll over the cap and save it for tomorrow, you can roll over your cap. This guy is not going to cost you anything.
Yeah, no, a 4th and a 6th, you make that deal, I think, all over the place. Because this is one of the spots, I think, the 49ers, when you look at, when you're making these deals, you're looking, okay, where can we improve? The 49ers are really good at cornerback with their starters. And Travarius Ward and Diamado Lenore. I really like that tandem. Where there's some question mark is more in the slot, right? So, this is a guy who you can get that can fill in the slot. He really fits what they do. I think, because his ability is kind of a safety / nickel / linebacker type of a player. I think he'd really fit in well in that spot. Trades don't count against your compensatory picks later on, so that makes sense for them too. They could trade a 4th and a 6th, and they've already got extras there anyway with the way the comp package is going to come out. So it makes a ton of sense. Get some pressure in there to really compete with Isaiah Oliver. Give yourself some depth in there. I think it'd make a ton of sense for a guy like Jeremy Chin. And if it's not Chin, then you're looking at, maybe the only other way that I can see them really improving their secondary is if you made a really big splash, trade with Denver again to bring in Patrick Surtain. You bring in Surtain, and now he's your outside corner that can lock it down, and you're able to slide Diamado Lenore into the slot full time. That's that. And then also because you have Surtain, who's a younger player, you have Lenore, who's a younger player, Travarius Ward right now, I think this is the last year of his contract. It gives you some two good outside corners for the long term if they're able to make that move. So those are the 2 biggest areas I see where if you're really trying to improve this defense and take them to the next level, it's add one more piece into that secondary, in particular, so you can strengthen the slot position. I like what Isaiah Oliver is doing in there. He's a good nickel back. I think he's covering just as good, if not better, than what they had last season. It's just a matter of if you can get that even better, then you go ahead and you make that move.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say at the corner is, like, what is Samuel Womack going to do when he comes back? is Darrell Luter Jr. going to make an impact this year at all, or is he going to be kind of in a red shirt type situation? Who are the other players that you were talking about them trading for? Because a lot of people are throwing out Chase Young from the Commanders, who's playing in the final year of his contract. Some people throw out Danielle Hunter from the Vikings. He turns 29 at the end of October. He's got 11 tackles for loss this year, including 6 sacks and 15 pressures. If you're going to dream, why not dream big? What about Brian Burns? He's playing under his 5th-year option on his rookie deal. Supposedly the current contract talks between Burns and the Panthers are on hold. Panthers are in a major rebuild mode. Burns is only 25. He's got 10 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He's got as much upside as almost any pass rusher in the league. He's, that's 25 or younger. Burns would be an awful special addition. What do you think of what other players were you thinking of?
Well, I liked all those names. Those are all names that I would mention. I think Hunter, Burns, you get one more pass rusher. Everybody, you talk about all the time, but hey, if you can get one more, you go ahead and get one more. The 49ers have a little bit of room at the back end of their depth chart where they could fit that in. I know they really like Clelin Ferrell. He's a really nice player. You look at one play that from Sunday night that I think gets overlooked is Fred Warner makes the big play because he knocks the ball out to force the fumble. But if you look at that play and you look at that play from the beginning, it's Clelin Ferrell that really sets the tone for that play because he sets the edge. He gets penetration into the backfield, which forces the running back to bounce back. And then before he bounces it outside. And that is one of the things that allows Warner to fight through the block that he's dealing with to get into position, even make the play to begin with. I think that Ferrell's a really underrated player in this defense. But, if you can add one more guy to that rotation, Drake Jackson has been playing good, but he hasn't really made much of an impact since week 1. I think you do it. And, Kalia Davis is a nice player, but I don't think you need 5 interior defensive pass rushers right now. And maybe Ferrell could even play a little bit of defensive tackle if they need to slide him inside every once in a while. So, I think that you could add a piece there. One other name that you mentioned that you didn't mention, there's 2 names that I mentioned would be the tackle from Denver, Garrett Bowles. What makes sense if you want to add, if you feel like you need to increase what you're doing on the offensive line, he would step in for Colton McKivitz is the reason you'd be doing that. And then one other name, the 49ers have been looking for a second tight end for a long time. That's why they brought in 2 rookies this year. But Mike Gesicki out in New England might be another name. He's a really good receiver that can come in and he's a good receiver, good blocker, could kind of fit that. So those are the names that I would throw out.
I'll give you another name that I like the idea of Gesicki. New England's obviously going nowhere. Gesicki is a big-bodied guy. He's not their starting tight end. They've got a starter in front of him. What do you think of Zach Ertz? Bay Area kid. He's played in Philly. It would probably mean a lot to him to come back and beat Philly. He's a Bay Area kid from Danville. I would imagine Ertz, would be a very popular addition. I think Ertz would. I guess I'm a little not sold on, at tight end. They went into the year with Kittle, and then Cameron Latou, and now Cameron Latou's on the IR, and then Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly, and Braden Willis. Willis is still a very nice young player, but it looks like it may take a little time. Warner is still what Warner is, which is, a try-hard blocker and not much of a receiver. Dwelly is kind of a nice, sure-handed receiver, but not much of a blocker. I just feel like if you could get Ertz, a proven starting caliber tight end opposite George, it seems like Kyle loves his double tight end sets, and now you'd have 2 receiving threats and a little bit more of a representative blocker than what Dwelly gives you. I like the idea of trying to get Ertz from Arizona for maybe nothing.
Yeah, that's a good name. That would be another good one. Kind of fits what I'm looking at there too. And it's interesting too. The other thing that when we because you've mentioned it and I started this off talking about tight end. But the other thing that's I think we miss a little bit in this discussion when it comes to the tight end spot with the 49ers is Kyle Juszczyk, right? That's really what he's almost become their second tight end. Right. They run a ton of 21 personnel, and I think they can do that because he's really has that ability to do all the things of a second tight end. that was one of the big plays in the game on Sunday night was I think it was in this last game. Shoot, I don't know. My games are all getting mixed together. But remember that the hold on one of the deep routes, I think that might have been the week before. But regardless, he has that ability to line up a tight end and make you have to cover him down the field. And he can do so many things. And it's almost like, do you make a trade, give up something to bring in a guy like that, or you just stick with Kyle Juszczyk? That's the internal discussion that the 49ers would have before making that kind of a move.
We're talking about the potential ads. One guy that we know has already been added is Randy Gregory, and I had a chance to talk to Gregory and do an interview with him this week, and I really like him, Jack. I think this guy's exactly what the doctor ordered. Why? Because you're talking. First of all, he helps all those people who bought those 5, number 5 Lance jerseys now have a jersey they don't have to throw away. They can just get a new nameplate, and suddenly it's a reusable jersey. But beyond that, I love the idea of adding a speed rusher opposite Nick Bosa, because you've got Bosa, you got Hargrave, you got Armstead, and if you're really gonna like if you said to me, who's why was Philly's line so hard to block last year? Well, it was so hard to block because you had Fletcher Cox in the middle, you had Hargrave who was rushing the passer in the middle. You had really good edge rushers, and then you had the ultimate speed rusher in Hassan Reddick. And is Hassan Reddick the greatest defensive end in pro football? No. But on that line, he was the perfect fit because he stretched you, because he was so fast and made your tackle really kind of kickstart out there. And I think Gregory can do a lot of the same things here. He can bend the edge. I mean, if you look at the Niners, Kerry Hyder and Drake Jackson and Cleveland Farrell had 8 quarterback hits and like 243 pass rush snaps going into the Dallas game. Gregory had 4 by himself in 73 pass rush snaps in Denver, and he hadn't really been playing all that well, and he wasn't on nearly as good of a line. I just personally think that Gregory, because of his speed off the edge, is exactly what the doctor ordered, and I think he's going to make a massive impact. I think people don't realize what kind of impact it will, because the Niners haven't had that speed rusher opposite Bosa really since Dee Ford. And now if you add a true speed rusher, I think it's going to open up all kinds of things for Hargrave, for Armstead, for blitzing linebackers like Greenlaw or Warner. In a lot of ways, I think Gregory could be the final piece to the puzzle up front.
Yeah, I like it. I like the addition of Randy Gregory. This is a guy who's kind of struggled a little bit with some different things off the field. I know you had the gentleman on from the Cowboys on Friday last
Brad
week.
Sham,
yeah, Brad Sham, and I was listening to him talk a couple of different times, and he was talking about Randy Gregory as somebody that he just really likes. As a person, the player is the player, but to hear him talk about Randy Gregory, the person, the thing that he's had, the stuff that he's had to kind of overcome to get to where he is, I felt like listening to him talk really helped explain some of the issues that we've heard of him having. Right? I mean, there's a reason, the marijuana stuff and kind of, the social anxiety stuff that he's had. It makes a ton of sense why he'd be using marijuana to relax and whatnot. And
it's going to fit in. I mean, I walked through that parking lot before the Niner game the other night. I think he'll fit in just fine with the faithful.
He'll be good to go. No, but he just seems like he's a good dude, right? And then
he does.
In the interview, I know you interviewed him one-on-one afterwards. I was part of the group portion of it, but he sat there, he talked to everybody. Was polite, cordial. A lot of positivity. Then you go see him get out on the field, and you can see how explosive he is coming off the ball. And you can see, him working with Chris Kosarick on different things. And I know he's working with Nick Bosa. I think this is a really nice fit. It's one of those deals like it's all upside for the 49ers. There's no way that this is a bad move because they didn't give up anything for him. He doesn't cost them anything. And all he's going to do is go out there and make them better. This is a 1994 type of move where they get a guy who can do it, and they're not really spending a ton, and it's all potential upside for the team. I like it, and I'm looking forward to seeing Randy Gregory on the field with the 49ers.
I asked him about the wide 9. He says it's perfect. I asked him about Chris. He's like, oh, Chris is exactly what I love. He said I compare him to Rod Marinelli, who I had in Dallas. And he's like, these guys drive you hard, but at the end of the day, they've got such passion for what they do that you can't help but play with your hair on fire. But from 2020 to 2022, Gregory's pressure percentage in 2020, 15.2, 2021, 15.7, 2022, 15.7. In 2022, he had 106 pass rushes, finished with an 11.3 hurry percentage, 10.4 quarterback hit percentage, 16 pressures, 12 hurries, 11 hits on the quarterback, 5 knockdowns, 2 sacks. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing off the edge, and I just think that's a phenomenal addition for the 49ers. And I think he's gonna open things up, and really people are gonna love him. All right, I got one topic that I got to hit that I'm very passionate about. The NFL mints money. Okay, there are no guaranteed contracts for the most part outside of a guy here or a guy there. So as soon as your body breaks, you're done. Like the average player 3 years after they're out of the league is broke. And I'm not saying that's the league's fault. The players have to take some responsibility. But the number one thing that I cannot stand is the NFL taking money out of the players' pockets for nothing. And the NFL this week fined George Kittle $13,699 for that Dallas T-shirt that he wore under his pads. It's not like he's got it over his jersey. He wore it under his pads and pulled up his shirt and showed people the "F you Dallas." It's just too corporate, man. It's just too corporate. It's outrageous. It's like, according to Jeremy Fowler, the NFL fined him for use of abusive language for his profane Dallas T-shirt displayed after a touchdown last week. And Kittle was asked about it, and he said, he asked if it would deter him. He's like, no, I'm going to do it again. 100%. I do it again. So good for him. But I hate this. I hate taking money out of these guys' pockets. These guys risk paralysis on every snap. The league is minting money. It's probably the healthiest industry in America. The revenue pie jumps by the billions every single year. The owners are making money hand over fist. The TV money is endless. And still we have to take the money out of the players' pockets because their socks are pulled down. They didn't have their knee pad right. In this case, they wore a T-shirt under their pads. I mean, this is the kind of thing that adds to the rivalry. This is the kind of thing that colors the league and makes it more interesting. This corporate show no individuality, strike down any individuality at all is just so tired. It is the NFL, does stand for the No Fun League. It's like, come on, NFL. It's like it's awful. It's absolutely awful. George Kittle's got enough money to not worry about it, but I just think it's terrible. And I think it's a bad precedent to set. I want to see these guys be more colorful. I want to see these guys be more antagonistic of one another. I want to see more individuality. I don't want to see less. To me, it makes it more interesting, not less.
Yeah, you stole it right there at the end when you said the No Fun League, right? NFL stands for the No Fun League, and that's really what it is. I mean, come on, the only reason they're fining him is because he pulled a shirt up and showed a big deal. I mean, in 1994, Gary Plummer wore a shirt that actually said it. I don't even know if it actually spelt it out all the way from but whatever. Regardless, who cares? It's just an undershirt, and Micah Parsons, got his underwear in a tizzy, caused was a problem with it. The other guy from Dallas, I don't remember who it was, but said, well, if you don't like it, keep him out of the end zone, and that's really what it is. I mean, these guys have fun. It's just an undershirt. Yeah, he showed it, big deal. He's celebrating with the fans and having a good time. It wasn't like he did it in front of the Cowboys. It's not like he was taunting the Cowboys in any kind of way or anything like that. It was just having a good time in the moment. I don't get the whole thing. I don't know why they have to fine him. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, a couple supers, and we're almost ready to bail here. Aaron Jacobs says, I compare Brock to Steph Curry. Not athletic or built like most in his position, but skilled unlike most at his position. That's a good call. That's a good call. I mean, there were an awful lot of people that looked at Steph Curry and were like, is he a point guard? Is he a two guard? He's too smiley. He's too small. The Real Goat says, love the show, Krug. Do you think the fans who wanted Kyle fired sit with their arms crossed every Sunday, or do they celebrate with their pom-poms? I don't know that was a fan-driven thing. It might have been a media-driven thing. The idea that Kyle was ever on the hot seat was maybe the most ridiculous narrative of all time. When you really think of who preceded him, you're going to run back to the Jim Tomsula, Chip Kelly days. I mean, the guy's been in 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games, and people would dare say that he was on the hot seat. There was never anything. There was nothing ever there to point to. That was people just trying to stir the pot and get a narrative going, and there was never any substance to it ever, really, from what I could tell. I mean, I know people who know Jed. I don't talk to Jed personally, but I never have seen anybody even take one step in the direction that Shanahan or Lynch were on the hot seat. They may have been told this year, hey, guys, the window is closing on us. Let's do this thing with a little bit more urgency this year. But I think that's as far as holding their feet to the fire really went. I think both those guys have been I think Jed's been absolutely firmly in their corner their entire time here. What's your read on the Kyle on the hot seat talk?
Yeah, I kind of chalk it up kind of like you do. I don't see it as really being anything. There's nothing to it. This is a guy who he lost 22 games in his first 2 seasons as the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. They were 10-22. In the last 5 years, right? 4+ years, he's lost 22 games. The same as they lost. He's turned this franchise around. They're on the upswing. I talked about it during training camp or right after, the whole, we got to hold them accountable. Come on, give me a fucking, we don't hold people. You hold people accountable when they're losing, and the 49ers haven't lost. Yeah, they lose they've lost and they haven't won the Super Bowl. That's the big thing, right? But this whole holding them accountable, come on, it's weird. And it's just like, there was another one where it's, he's people have questioned his leadership, and you look at some of the comments, you see the comments that are coming out, you see from the players. He's a leader in so many different ways. One of the things that I saw recently was about how he gets everybody involved in the decision-making process when it comes to plays and those types of things. I mean, that's all leadership. Those are all leadership kind of qualities. And he definitely brings people in, brings people together. If you're not winning the Super Bowl, though, you're a problem. And that's kind of where it comes to. It's very much like Andy Reid out in Philadelphia, right? Andy Reid, Andy Reid's a genius now, but Andy Reid's been doing this for years and years and years. He was doing it out in Philadelphia. They never won the Super Bowl because it was always a problem and everything he was doing was wrong. So I think we're at that spot with Kyle Shanahan. They got to finish the deal.
Dazza says, I'm not saying Shanahan is on the hot seat, but what happens if we get knocked out of the playoffs again? Then you get knocked out of the playoffs again. Once again, you're going to run them out. That's fine, but you got to have somebody that you're going to run in. So who are you going to run in that's better than Shanahan? That's what I would say.
Yeah, and that's really it.
I'm all ears. I mean, if you got a name, give me one.
Yeah, the whole hot seat thing really kind of comes back to this, right? Losing in the playoffs, like I just mentioned. And, again, Kyle Shanahan signed an extension with the 49ers before week 1, having, lost the last 2 NFC Championship games, having just traded away a quarterback who they spent 3 first-round picks to acquire, all these different things. But the 49ers and Jed York, this is a team that's on the rise. If you've got to be able to see it. If you just watch the games and you can tell that they're what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have built here in San Francisco. There's no hot seat. They're cool. They're right now. It's not ice cold, but it's about as cool as you can get without sticking to it.
If they fired him, literally, he'd be hired before the sun went down. I mean, somebody would come in and just give him a contract. Jack, great stuff, man. What do you got cooking on your channel the rest of the week and leading into Sunday?
Yeah, I got a couple more things that I'll be doing. I'll probably do a live show later on today, kind of breaking down some of the news around the team. Usually do one on Saturday, and then we'll do a pregame and a postgame on Sunday. So, keep it locked in. Been doing really good things. We're almost to 11,000 now. So. Chasing you down there. I know you're setting the pace. So I'm just trying to keep up with you, man.
Hey, love streaming with you, brother. Have a great Friday, a great game day. Everybody go like and subscribe on Jack's channel. Follow what he writes in the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Some of his previews are some of the best things. And I don't want to say anything, but I often steal it and use it as my own. I'll read Jack's stuff in the Press Democrat. Then I'll come back on these streams and I'll repeat it to you guys as if it were my own ideas. But I'm stealing it from Jack. Anyway, I hope nobody heard that.
That's one of the best things right there. That is actually one of my favorite things is when I happen to come across your channel and I hear you say something that I'm like, hey, I wrote that. That's good. That's good.
You know what? The other day I was on Bleacher Report app, and out of nowhere I saw somebody, and I had just done a video the day before on the Niners need to get Jeremy Chin. He's the final piece. And some guy in one of the comments on Bleacher Report's app's like, I think Jeremy Chin would be a great option. It was like, I wonder where he got that one. Jack, have a great day, man. Always love streaming with you. We'll do it again next Friday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Larry. Have a good one.
There you go. The great Jack Hammer in the house. All right. Final mention of our sponsors, MarinAutoglass.com. You shatter a windshield. You need a new one. MarinAutoglass.com, 415-883-3030. The only sausage I will eat is New York-style Italian sausage. And, of course, the title sponsor of the Krueger Show is Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And here's their spot in Marin.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
And the Krueger Show is also partnered with Underdog Fantasy this football season. Underdog Fantasy gives fans a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. Check out their weekly pick'em players, where you pick between 2 to 5 players. Select whether they'll go higher or lower on their game stats. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money. And this week I'm going with Brock Purdy to have a big game in Cleveland against the Browns. You can enter the same as me, or you can make your own picks. Sign up using the link in the description. Use that promo code Krueg, K-R-U-E-G, and they'll match you up to $100. All right, we're not nearly done today. At 12:45, Damon Bruce will join me. We'll have a phone call segment, and also Tony Grossi's going to join us. He covers the Browns for 850 ESPN in Cleveland, and also he's a Browns analyst for the landondemand.com and an NFL analyst as well. And like me, he's got a golden retriever. So we'll talk dogs, we'll talk Browns, and we'll talk with Damon, and we'll take your phone calls. And at 3 o'clock, the great Jesse Sapolu in the house. We'll chop it up with Jesse. Until then, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't get exactly what you asked for.